What's going on, everybody? Paul Tech here, and welcome to my revisit review of the LG G3. Now, the LG G3 was first released back in 2014, and this was LG's flagship device. So I'm going to share with you my experience of using it today, and if I still think it's worth picking up in 2018 as a 4-year-old flagship. Now, the LG G3 can actually be purchased at a very affordable price. I bought this off eBay for $62.98. It's Verizon, globally unlocked, and in very good condition. Let me go ahead and give you a tour around the G3. Now, when it comes to the right and left-hand side, there's no buttons whatsoever. And take a look at the bottom. You are getting micro USB charging on this, your microphone, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the top of the G3, you are getting your noise cancellation mic as well as an IR blaster. To the back of the G3, you're getting a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera. This has optical image stabilization, laser autofocus, and your power and volume buttons are to the back as well. You're also getting LG branding to the bottom there, as well as a backfiring speaker, and we'll talk about speaker quality a little bit more as this review goes on. Overall, the design and build looks pretty good to me, in my opinion. Even though this is a 4-year-old smartphone, I think the design still looks good today. It's aged well. Cosmetically, this G3 is looking pretty nice. I like the brushed metal type of look to the back. I mean, it is a plastic back, but it has this metallic coating on it, and it has nice rounded corners, volume rockers, power button, all nice and easy to reach to the back there. Now, this back cover is removable, which is great because it gives you access to your removable 3000 milliamp hour battery. Also getting access to your SIM card, and you can also input a micro SD card to the G3 to expand the storage up to 128 gigs. Moving on to the display now. Now, with the display, it was a big deal back in 2014 for the G3. It was one of the first smartphones with a quad HD display. So it is coming in at a 16:9 aspect ratio, 5.5 inches, 1440 by 2560, so about 534 pixels per inch. You do get some pretty slim bezels on the G3. You get Gorilla Glass 3 on this as well, on-screen buttons, and you know, the G3's display does look pretty nice. It has decent viewing angles. The only thing I would say is it doesn't get super bright. So outdoor visibility is not the best on the LG G3. And don't worry, the cat is perfectly fine as well, guys. Moving on to call quality on the LG G3. Now, this does have HD voice for calls, and caller said I sounded perfectly fine while I was using the G3, so I had no problems with drop calls or anything like that. Now, moving on to 4G LTE connectivity. Now, the Verizon LG G3 is globally unlocked, so I did use this on Cricket Wireless as well as Metro, and as you can see, you know, I got good strong bars there. Now, when it came to keyboard sensitivity, the LG G3 has an excellent keyboard. It's customizable as well, so you can adjust the height of it, you can change the theme, and yeah, so sending emails out, text messages, everything worked great. I really had no issues with the keyboard with the LG G3. As you can see, this is the stock keyboard and some of the different emojis on it. Now, moving on to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, both of those were good, had no problems there, and this does connect to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi as well. And moving on to what's under the hood of the LG G3. So you are getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 801. It is clocked at 2.4 gigahertz. You're also getting the Adreno 330, and the G3 also has 3 gigs of RAM. Now, moving on to the sensors, as you can see, the G3 does have, you know, a wide variety of sensors. This does have the gyroscope, the gyro sensor, so you're going to be able to watch 360 videos as well as VR. And moving on to the user interface, so I kept things pretty much how it is on the G3, no launcher or anything like that. You got your weather widget up on top, which gives you these drop-down cards, information about the weather and how to dress. You got smart bulletin as well, so you can have, you know, your calendar right there. You got LG Health on board. I'll kind of just navigate here around a little bit. I'll go ahead and jump into the app drawer so you can basically see the layout of it. And pulling down the status bar, as you can see, I am getting all my notifications in. So again, it had no problems there receiving my notifications. And the status bar, you got all your quick toggles there, like Wi-Fi, Capture Plus. A cool feature on the G3 is Q-Slide. So I really like Q-Slide because you can select with certain applications. You can have them open on your display there. So for instance, I have the dialer open, and I'll go back into the Q-Slides, and then I'll go ahead and open up the calendar. and you can adjust the size of it. You can change the transparency, and I have full functionality over the display with the QSlide application. So again, those could be very useful for multitasking. Now, when it came to performance, now the LG G3 actually did pretty good. I was actually very pleased with the performance that I did receive with the 801 processor and the 3 gigs of RAM. Put it this way, it actually will perform better than a lot of the budget devices you will purchase today with like a 400 series processor and 2 gigs of RAM. Now, when it came to like going into the Google Play Store and downloading certain applications, everything seemed to download perfectly fine. The only thing that didn't work, I noticed, was the Geekbench 4 test, which I don't know why it downloaded, but then it wouldn't run Geekbench 4. But I was able to run the Antutu benchmark test, which I'll show you that in just a little bit. And you also have multi-window on board for the G3. So some of you are going to be familiar with this. Now, you are limited to these specific applications here. So you can just drag up YouTube there, and then you can drag down Gallery, and it'll open them both up. So this is a feature that is very similar to what you got on Nougat, except with Nougat, you get much more of a variety of applications you can use with a multi-window. But, you know, still good stuff you have here on the G3. And moving on to the IR Blaster. So I was a little worried at first, you know, is this going to be working on this $63 LG G3 that I purchased off eBay? And it worked perfectly fine. I paired it up with my smart TV. So this is a feature I absolutely love. I love the IR Blaster, and I love the fact that the LG G3 has this. And it's a very useful feature, especially in my house where we're always losing the remote control for the TV. And moving on from there, I'm going to go ahead and jump into settings and show you some of the features you have here. First thing I want to share with you is Share and Connect. So you do have NFC on board, so you can use Google Pay, Android Beam, SmartShare Beam, as well as Media Server. Moving on from there, you can also switch up the button combination. So you can just rearrange the on-screen buttons, as you can see there, to however you see preferred. You can have QSlide apps on that, dual window to your on-screen buttons. And then when it comes to your security features, so unfortunately the LG G3 does not have a fingerprint sensor, but you can use swipe, not code, pattern, pin, and password. And you also got Smart Lock on board. As you can see to the bottom there, you got some other customizable features as well. Jumping into storage now. So the G3 does have 32 gigabytes of internal storage. Like I mentioned earlier, you can remove the back cover, input a micro SD card, and expand that storage up to 128 gigs. Now, when you input the SD card, it is going to say you can only use it as portable storage, not as adoptable storage. So just kind of keep that in mind. You still can move some apps, just not all of them. As you can see, you got some other features there, like your shortcut keys, quick circle case. I do have one of those. I absolutely love the circle case. And going into software info, as you can see, it is running 6.0 Marshmallow, so not the latest version of Android. Not a big deal to me, but there are ways of rooting this, and you can also add a custom ROM, and there's all types of videos and ways of doing that for the G3. Now, when it comes to GPS, I had no problems using the LG G3. It kept my location, it got me to my destinations each and every time. So the LG G3 did excellent when it came to GPS. And let's go ahead and talk about that backfiring speaker. So LG actually made a pretty big deal about this speaker back in 2014 because it was a 1-watt speaker with a boost amp. And to be honest with you, it doesn't get extremely loud, and the placement is not the greatest. It can easily get covered up and then it sounds muffled, but it's not a bad speaker. It's a good speaker, but it just doesn't get super loud in my opinion, and the placement is not the greatest. Here's some audio coming from that backfiring speaker. Now, moving on to the cameras, again, a 13 megapixel rear facing camera with a f2.4 aperture. You got phase detection, laser autofocus, optical image stabilization, dual tone LED flash as well. Now, when it comes to shutter speed, it's actually pretty good on the G3. I really enjoy taking photos with the G3. Everything does come out looking pretty nice. With the front facing camera, it is just 2.1 megapixels, and it's not the greatest. It's just okay, but I really don't use the front facing camera all that much. Video recording, this can also record in Ultra HD, 1080p 30 frames per second. It looks good. You know, the images that the G3 produces is pretty nice. It's not going to be, you know, better than like a Galaxy S8 or S9, but it is going to be a lot better than most budget smartphones of today. You also get different modes to choose from, like a magic focus, panorama, dual mode, which is actually going to be really good if you're into type of like vlogging. You get this little window right there on the display while you're recording. So again, a pretty cool feature if you're thinking of getting into vlogging. Maybe this is an affordable smartphone that will work for you. It definitely has that. Again, Ultra HD video recording, got slow motion on this. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you some photo samples shot on the LG G3. So like I mentioned earlier, I couldn't run the Geekbench 4 test, but I did run the Antutu benchmark test. So the score I did get was 63,824 for those that were interested. Now moving on to gameplay on the LG G3. So I did download a variety of games off the Google Play Store, and all the games downloaded perfectly fine. Pretty much all the games were supported. Now I did notice after about 15 minutes of gameplay that the G3 did start getting pretty warm. Now I didn't get any messages that it was going to shut off or anything like that, or reduce the screen brightness, but I did feel it did get warm to the back. So just kind of keep that in mind. And yes, you can play PUBG on the LG G3. Now moving on to battery life, again, a 3000 milliamp hour removable battery, and battery life wasn't that great for me. I am a pretty heavy user on my smartphones. I'm on them all the time, and oftentimes I couldn't make it through an entire day off of full charge. I was charging the G3 up before the end of the day, but you can always, buy spare batteries. There are these 0 lemon battery packs you can buy off Amazon as well. So, battery life is just going to vary depending on how you use your G3. Pretty much wraps up my revisit review of the LG G3 in 2018. Overall, it was a pretty good experience using this 4-year-old flagship as my daily driver. Now, I think the LG G3 still has some good features about it. I really like the Quad HD display. I like these slim bezels. I like the design and form factor of the G3 IR Blaster. With the 801 processor and the 3 gigs of RAM, it does provide some good overall performance. And even though the G3 is not running the latest version of Android, there are many ways of rooting the G3 and throwing different custom ROMs on it, and you'll be good to go. So there's all different types of ways of doing that. But that's pretty much it, other than the two areas of battery life and the phone getting warm during gameplay. I think the LG G3 could be a good option for maybe somebody that's on a budget that wants an older flagship phone. I know there's some people out there that don't want to buy budget phones of today. They like to stick with flagships, even if it's older. This can be a good option, maybe even until you can save up some money and get the next flagship phone from LG. So definitely do your research. There are some good deals out there for the G3. And again, I never experienced any type of boot loop issues with this phone either. All right, everybody, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will talk to you on the next one. Bye.